Hello and welcome to the Critically Curious on the Monk, and today, yes, we are in Age of Mythology Retold. We are doing another guide video for the Norse. Today's video is all about none other than Loki. Now, if you don't own the DLC, in my opinion, Loki is actually the very best of the Norse gods, and we're going to go over exactly why that is in this video. Again, if you like this kind of content and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, Loki has focus over myth units, and we're going to be talking about just why that is a little bit later in the video. Now, on top of that, buildings constructed are 10% faster, ox carts are cheaper, and transforming gatherers into berserkers is also 50% cheaper. Now, Loki's starting spell magic at age 1 isn't really that great. He has something called Spy, in which he can target anyone on any enemy unit, it says, on the field of play, and you basically get their eyes for their entire life cycle. It can be good if used correctly, but I can totally understand that his starting abilities can feel a little lackluster compared to many other gods. Now, at age 2, you can pick Fawcett. He's an interesting god. He has a healing spring, which can be pretty decent, to be fair. It gives you quite a big healing radius. It heals troops within that area. So if you've got damaged troops, you walk them in it, they get healed. You also get access to a troll, which you can then upgrade as well. You also get dwarven breast armor, so you can get awesome buffs there too. I would quickly mention, with the healing springs, you do need to guard them. They can be taken over by the enemy if they step within radius with a land unit, so just keep that in mind. Or you could pick Heimdall, and he has a couple of underwhelming abilities here. First of all, we have Undermine, which essentially attacks structures. I like to use it to kind of stop the AI from building an early wonder. We do have a very good myth unit here. This guy attacks soldiers very, very well, grid advanced soldiers, and really good against buildings too. It's quite a tank, actually, late in the game. You also got Safeguard. In other words, you can buff up your HP on your walls and your structures. The Norse really aren't the race to turtle down with, so this is why I say it's underwhelming, in the sense that you're not really going to be building up walls anyway. At the third age, we can pick Bragi. Here we get flaming weapons, in which any single soldier you have, their weapons burst into flame. For a limited period of time, they do a little bit more damage. It can be used well, but you really do have to plan that out, and of course have the right troops for that to work. Alternatively, you've got the Battle Ball, or with this, you've got the Battle Ball, which is a myth unit, which does pretty decent damage, actually. You've also got Call of Valhalla, which will buff your berserkers. You also get the ability to buff your myth units as well. Make them a little bit faster and give them regeneration, which is a nice little touch. Personally, I would pick Nord. This is a really good option. Walking Woods is very powerful. I think at one stage I had over 150 walking trees. They got decent health, a decent attack. You also get Mountain Giants. Again, a very good myth unit. Ring Giver also is a nice buff to Jarls, which is a cavalry unit. And ultimately, this is one of my favorite gods to pick for the Mountain Giants, really. At age 4, you would be... it would be a bad choice not to pick Hel. She is such a great god. You only get her with Loki. If you don't have Freya, which is the DLC, you get access to all the giants. You get access to Rampage. In other words, you can train myth units almost instantly. And of course, you get access to a dragon. If you didn't want to go with Hell, you could go with Tyr. You do get access to the wolves, which will be summoned around all of the town centers. You also get the wolf brood, which in my opinion is actually ridiculously powerful if you're playing as Thor or Odin. You also get the ability to buff up your Berserk again as well. Um, Ultimately, this isn't a bad option, but Hell is just so good that I would pick Hell. And of course, we'll go over a few of those units a little bit later, just to show you exactly why I would pick them. Now, starting off as an Norse, you do get the option to build Dwarfs, Gatherers, or Berserker right from the get-go. One costing meat, one costing gold, the other costing a bit of both. Now, your gatherers and dwarves can build houses and they can build farms. They can also build an ox cart. But what we should say when it comes to the Norse, it's actually the fighters, the fighting men that are the builders here. So your berserk, you do get run from the very beginning, is the guy that you're going to be building everything with. He's also your active scout, so keep that in mind. Playing as the Norse, you are going to need an awful lot of wood though as well. So make sure you put some gatherers on collecting that wood. Now, the Berserker is the first kind of fighting man you'll get, but the very first building that you are probably going to be building is a temple. From that building, you can actually build yourself your very first hero. It's going to be that hero unit that not only can you do everything you can do with the Berserker, in other words, you can build everything you can do with them, but he can also pick up all of your artifacts. Also, having them just randomly around passively earns you faith. If you do kill anything as the Norse, you'll also be getting faith then too. That does or did include animals before the last patch. Do need to research that. Now, we did mention the ox cart already. The ox cart is your portable drop-off point. You do need them in order to drop off all your goods. It's going to be here that you're going to be researching for better axes and better mining equipment as well. Now, playing as the Norse, you are going to be able to have 100 dwarfs or gatherers, which is pretty decent, really. Now, as we mentioned before, turtling down, as in making defensive structures as the Norse, doesn't really pay off. Their walls do not have the health. They do only get one upgrade, so keep that in mind. Now, it is the Great Hall, which is my preferred building for making offensive troops. The Gordai are really good heroes. They are a ranged hero, great against flying units, especially as they're mostly myth units, so heroes kind of counter them. The Jarls can also be built here, along with the other cavalry unit too. Now, we should take a few seconds to talk deeper about the Brood Wolf. Now, the Brood Wolf is a great unit. The more of them you actually have, the more their melee goes up. It starts pretty high in the first place, I think like high 30s. But if you have 6 of them out, it actually goes up to over 50 melee damage, which is kind of nuts, really. So having a decent pack of these is going to seriously mess people up. Now, it says that they're very good against infantry units, and I do agree with that, but I've actually found that they're very good against buildings as well. As you can see, with over 1,000 health, with over 100 melee once the wonder's complete, they're a serious unit. I think what I like about them the most is that they only cost 2 population. It means you can have an absolutely gigantic pack of these, and they are fantastic creatures. They are a myth unit, so they can be countered with heroes, but seriously, who has that many heroes to counter a huge pack of these? Now, the other thing we should talk about is Rampage. Within the temple, you get access to Rampage. Once researched, all of your myth units are 95% quicker, meaning you almost instantly train those giants, which is just insane, really. You can have so many giants so quick. Someone may think you have no army, but it's because you don't need to pre-build your army. You have an army on demand once Rampage is done. And that 95% faster does work with all of your myth units. So it doesn't matter which one it is, even if it's not one of the ones that was depicted in Hell. So in other words, a non-giant. It all trains super quick. It's kind of crazy just to see just how fast you can pump out those giants. Now let's talk about the spells, the powers you get within the various different ages. First of all, let's talk about the first one you get, which is Spy. I like to actually find an enemy scout, use it on him, and essentially mark that map for you. The other one we should talk about is Undermine. This is not one that I particularly like. It's not great against buildings. It's a little bit better against walls and towers and such, but if you're going to be using Mine to kind of slow the enemy down, you're not going to be doing a very good job. It does absolutely no damage whatsoever to units as well. So if you're thinking about using it against an approaching army or something like that, as you see, it doesn't even touch these villagers that are here. I mean, I totally understand I don't want to make this too powerful. It is an early spell you get access to anyway, but just too underwhelming for me. Now, this is the other thing, the healing springs. These are really good, especially around your own main buildings. Like I said, the big thing about them, you just have to try and make sure they don't get captured by the enemy. And one of my favorite units as playing with Loki is the Walking Woods. Now, when you use the power, it turns trees from the forest 7 at a time. I absolutely love these because you can just spam and spam and spam again and again and again, just building up an army of these walking woods, and it will not affect your population. So any creatures that you can summon in the game, they do not add to your current population. As you can see, I've got a fair few there. And the wolves are actually a really fun spell. I do quite like using it. It can be really annoying for the AI, for someone if you're playing against them online multiplayer. It will absolutely, just demolish villages after villages after villages, especially if you're playing against a player. Except a little bit slower about ringing that bell, a little bit slower about getting those villagers inside, and they just lose so much ground with this. But playing as Loki, I would absolutely summon this Nidhogg. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Either way, it's a flying dragon. It's the single greatest air unit in the game. It has, I think, 2,500 health on when you very first summon them. It has 5,000 health if you get the Wonder up, and you can summon as many as you want given enough time in a game. They are slow moving across that map, however, and they do cost a fair bit of faith. So you're gonna have to kind of like, decide between what you want to spend your faith on, whether that's going to be your myth units or, of course, it's going to be those dragons. But got to mention the dragons themselves. They do an insane amount of damage, not to mention they are a flying unit, which means that a lot of units cannot attack them. You have to have a ranged unit to attack them. Because they have such a huge health pool, you'll find that they can kind of single-handedly take on small cities, definitely take on town centers and stuff like that. The AI or the human players you're playing against kind of have to focus on how they're going to take on an enemy like this. But there we have it, guys. That is everything I've got for you on Loki. In my opinion, the best Norse god that you can pick if you do not own Freya. But out of the base 3, Loki is, for me, definitely the best option. But until next time, I've been a monk, we've been in Critic Curious, and I will see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy and happy gaming.